Hi everyone. I actually am finishing up getting ready. I've had two conversations back to back on the same topic and thought, you know what, this is something that I wish somebody would have told me when I had kids or when I was, trying to have kids. So if you're a mom, a dad, a new parent, an expecting parent, all the things. So while I am finishing up my mascara, first of all, take a look at the difference. And another thing parenting will do is make you have extremely tired eyes, which causes discoloration. So therefore, I love my Victoria's Matte Cream Shadow. Look at the difference. I don't have any on this eye, and it just, boom, makes me fake awake. Okay, so, and the reason I'm talking about this is because literally last night, no, it wasn't last night. It was a couple nights ago. My daughter came in from an activity of some sort that she had kind of been looking forward to. Actually, she had been really looking forward to. And I said, oh my gosh, how did it go? And she said, oh, it was fun. It was way different than I expected. And I said, oh, okay, well, what do you mean by that? Like, tell me a little bit more. And so she said, oh, I don't know. Like sometimes, and she's about to be 9. So she's, this is the young thought process, the young brain, but very like spot on. And she said, I don't know. I just sometimes have these, like, I picture situations or things or environments to be a certain way. And then when they actually, like when I actually see them for the first time or experience something for the first time, it's totally different than what I had in my head, which we can all attest to that, right? We all have these expectations. And so it was funny that she said that because I was like, really? And I just kind of had that conversation with her. I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of things in life where we set these like massive expectations, and when things actually go down or things actually happen, or you visit somewhere or something or a new place or something that you've like had in your head, all of a sudden you get there or you meet someone or you do something or you experience something and it's totally different than what you had drummed up into your head. And so it's funny because as a parent, I will get to the parenting myth, but as a parent, it's the same thing. I think we have all these like grand visions of sugar plums, and unicorns and rainbows, and oh my gosh, it's going to be so fun to have kids, which it is. It is a huge blessing. Don't get it twisted. That's not where I'm going with this, but expectations are a real thing to manage. And so I'll tell you the parenting expectation, but for real life, that's a real life coming from a 9-year-old, right? So she was talking about expectations, like having these, visions in her head of what things would be like or seem like or look like. And when they actually happen or come to fruition, they're totally different or underwhelming or maybe overwhelming. Sometimes in different situations, it can be different things. And so we had that conversation. And so I had the same conversation with someone yesterday, because as my husband and I are literally about to run our first marathon in 6 days, I was talking to somebody who had run the half marathon. And I said, okay, well, so help me understand, like, when I get to the finish line, will my family be there? Like, will my kids be there? And she was like, oh my gosh, no. Don't expect that, because that's not. And I'm like, this whole time I've been training and prepping, I have had these like, you prep your mindset and you prep yourself to think, okay, when I finish the race, this is what it's going to be like. This is maybe how I'm going to feel. This is maybe what the environment will look like. And she was like, oh my gosh, no. I'm so glad you asked me, because no, the finish line is crazy, first of all. And there's not really a place for them to literally, greet you at the finish line. Because then at the Houston Marathon, they actually like corral you into a big area that's not outside. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you said that, because I needed that expectation managed. And she was like, oh yes, I'm so glad we we talked about that. Hey, Amber. And so for me, I needed to hear that, what to expect at the end, because I think had I gotten to the end of the race and my kids not been there and me all this time, like thinking, oh my gosh, my kids are going to be there at the end, I think I would have been highly disappointed. I would have been like, over elated that I finished the race, but I think we dream up these expectations in our head, right? You can dream up an expectation about what you think someone is going to be like when you finally meet them in person. You can have expectations about what a new experience is going to be like, what a new job is going to be like, what a new situation is going to be like, or a new relationship is going to feel like. So I say this because I've had this conversation. I'm actually gonna I'm super messy with mascara, so I'm gonna clean this off. I'm actually gonna spray my rose water on a Q-tip to get it off my lid because I'm super messy while I'm talking to you guys. Okay, so the whole point of this is the parenting myth. And so what I wanna share with you guys is I've literally had this conversation with so many parents who might have kids my age or a little bit younger, because I look to some of my really dear friends who have older kids and I'm like, help me manage these expectations with parenting, help me manage what it's going to be like when we get to that stage. Help me manage what it's going to look like when, my child is going through that stage or age or whatever. And so I look to my friends with older kids, and as I'm talking to friends who have younger kids, the thing that I feel like parents often say, this is not a gender bias, this is mom or dads, they typically always say, oh, I can't wait till we get through toddler stage, or I can't wait till we get through sleep regression, or I can't wait till my kids can drive. I can't wait till my kids can get themselves dressed. I can't wait till whatever you're wishing and waiting for. And I feel like a lot of times in parenting, we wish ourselves through a stage, and then we look back and we're like, crap, what I wouldn't give to go back and have the newborn snuggles. And yes, I was exhausted. And yes, I was tired. And yes, the baby's crying a lot of the time, or I'm constantly changing diapers, feeding, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that a couple of these conversations have gone when I've been chatting with, mainly it's been moms, but I don't feel like this is, opposed to being a conversation that you could have with a dad, is that the conversation always goes something like, but when my kids get a little older, or when he or she gets a little older, I'll have more time, I'll have more capacity, I'll have more, hey guys, I'll have more sleep, I'll have whatever you think at the next stage for your kids you're gonna have. I'm just gonna give it to you straight, more than likely you're not gonna have that. So the conversations have really gone down. Like, look, I know you think that when your kids get older, you're going to have more time to do maybe something for yourself or XYZ or whatever it might be, but I'm going to break it down for you. No stage is easier. The way I put it, quite frankly, is that every stage is a new form of hard. It doesn't get easier. You don't get more time. Things will change, right? But it's just a new form of hard. It's a different form of hard. So for example, when your kids are constantly clinging to you because they can't walk, and you say, oh my gosh, I just can't wait until I can put her down or put him down and that they can walk and they can follow me around. Well, guess what? It becomes a new stage of hard, a new form of hard when they do learn to walk. Because guess what? Then they're climbing on everything, they're pulling everything down, you're on the chase, you're on the move, right? And it's the same thing oh my gosh, when my kids get older, I'm going to have more time. No, it doesn't necessarily, you don't get time back. Things aren't going to get easier. It's a new type of hard, because it's a different type of hard. Because when your kids are little and they're chasing or they're climbing or they're not sleeping or whatever, then you fast forward into the ages that my kids are right now. We're studying, there's tutoring, there are sports activities. You are now mom's chauffeur, all these things that you think when you rewind and you're sitting in the stage where you maybe have toddlers, you say, oh my gosh, I can't wait until my kids are a little bit older to where then they maybe aren't as needy. Well, guess what? As a mom, you're like, oh, they don't need me as much. And then you cry, right? But setting the expectation that things don't necessarily get easier. With kids, at least, I feel like, just from my experience, I am not an expert at all, but I do feel like it's something that it's a new form of hard. It's a different type of hard. parenting doesn't necessarily get easier. And it's funny because I laugh with my mom with this. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry that I did this, like, I acted like this, or that I wouldn't take family pictures for you when we were doing Christmas card pictures. As a parent, it never gets easier. And my mom always says, she's like, Kelly, I always worry about you guys. At no point in parenting am I gonna stop worrying or thinking about you or wondering what you're doing or where you're going or how you're doing or how your day is. She's like, it doesn't go away because your kids grow up and age out. So anyway, I wanted to share that only because I've had that conversation with multiple moms and they're like, oh, but I just feel like when they go off to school, it'll get easier. And I'm like, but when they go off to school, then I'm the mom like at the window when they're like napping on a nap mat and learning to nap outside of a crib. I'm like, oh my God, she's napping on a mat. Oh my God. I'm like, and they change classrooms and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're aging out of the next classroom. My husband's like, you need to get it together. So it doesn't necessarily get easier. It's just a new kind of hard. It's a different kind of hard. So, and then having that conversation several days ago with my daughter about expectations in life, I just feel like it's something that we do all the time is we expect something to be more than what it was that we've dreamt up in our head, right? More or less. And generally, if we can manage our expectations and instead of thinking like, okay, this is exactly what it's going to be like, but instead just enjoy what's actually happening or the situation or the experience or the environment or whatever it is or the change. Because I feel like had I been in less of a spot of, I can't wait till my kids get out of this stage, because guess what? You get into another stage, which is harder. Like then they're going to hit puberty and then the hormones are going to be going nuts. And then I'm going to be like, oh my God. So I feel like if you can manage the expectations of like not wishing things away, but thinking, okay, you know what? I'm going to enjoy the fact that like right now with my kids, I can have a conversation. It's not always like a high level conversation, but their minds are thinking and they're generating their own thoughts and they're, coming up with questions that I'm like, with parenting, if you're watching us, one thing I can tell you, and if someone needs to hear this, whether it's you or someone that you know, so make sure you share it with them, because in parenting, it never gets easier. It becomes a different kind of hard. So if you can just wrap your head around that and not think, oh my gosh, when my kids are walking, it's going to be so much easier. Hey, you'll know it's not easier than you're like chasing and you constantly can't look away because they're into something or walking out the door or whatever. So I just wanted to share that because I feel like that is something that had I had that conversation earlier on as a mom, I would have maybe spent less time saying, oh, we'll get through this stage and, in a few months it'll be easier. No, it's never easier. It's just a new kind of hard that we all have to navigate through. So anyway, if you needed to hear this, I'm glad you tuned in. If you want to share it with someone, please click the share button and share it with a friend, a mom or a dad who needs to hear that, because so many times I catch parents saying, oh, well, in a few months or in a few years, or, oh, this is going to be easier, or I think about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, logistically, it would be so much easier when my kids learn to drive, because I think that will free up time for me, or that will free up time for my husband and I. Well, guess what? No, because I'm going to spend the majority of that time worrying about where they are, who they're with, where they're going, what they're doing, right? Like it becomes a different kind of hard. As parents, we got to make sure that we're like sharing these things with each other, because then you will probably spend more time relishing in the actual time present versus wishing things away, because then you look back and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not having any more kids, and now I miss the newborn snuggles, and oh my gosh, I miss those times. You miss them once you're past them, but we spend all that time wishing them away or waiting for it to get easier. Well, it ain't gonna get easier. So if nobody's broken that myth for you, there you have it.